She dumped me for a rich guy, but I built my own success and became her boss. You ever have one of those moments where life just flips on its head and you're standing there like, is this even real? Yeah, that's me right now. A few years ago, I was the guy who got left for someone richer, more successful, and all around better. At least, that's what she thought. She left me feeling worthless. Fast forward to today and now, I'm sitting across from her, and she's got no idea who's signing her paychecks. This is the crazy story of how I went from being the heartbroken ex to her boss. Part 1. The breakup that shattered me. So, let me set the scene. I was 24 at the time, fresh out of college, and working this entry-level job in IT. Nothing fancy, but I was paying the bills, and I had this big dream of starting my own company someday. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I had been dating for 3 years. We met in college. She was my first serious relationship, and honestly, I thought she was the one. Now, Sarah was gorgeous, like the kind of gorgeous that turned heads everywhere we went. She had this effortless charm, too, and could talk her way into or out of pretty much anything. Me? I was the nerdy, awkward guy who felt lucky to have her, and maybe that was the problem. Looking back, there were signs, little things I ignored because, well, love makes you blind, right? She'd make offhand comments about how I didn't dress sharp enough, or how she wished we could take fancier vacations. At the time, I laughed it off. I figured she was just venting or dreaming big, like we all do. Then came the night everything fell apart. It was a Friday, and I'd planned this little date night at home. Pizza, her favorite wine, and a movie. She showed up late, which wasn't unusual, but her whole vibe was off. She wasn't laughing at my bad jokes like she usually did, and she kept looking at her phone. Finally, after an awkward silence, she hit me with, "We need to talk." You know how everyone says those 4 words feel like a punch to the gut? Yeah, it's true. She told me she felt like we were on different paths, that she needed someone who could keep up with her ambitions. At first, I didn't even understand what she meant. But then she dropped the bomb. She'd met someone else, some guy named Trevor who worked in finance. Apparently, he was established and could give her the lifestyle she wanted. I just sat there, stunned. My brain was scrambling for something to say, but all I managed was, "So, you're leaving me because I'm not rich enough?" She didn't deny it. She just gave me this sad, pitying smile and said, "I'll always care about you, but I need more than what you can give me." And just like that, she walked out of my life. I spent the rest of the night staring at the cold pizza, replaying everything in my head. Was I not enough? Was I stupid for thinking love was enough? It was like my entire self-worth had been tied to this relationship, and now it was gone. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. It's the perfect place to start rebuilding. Part 2. Rebuilding from the ashes. After Sarah left, I felt like a ghost. I'd go to work, come home, and just sit in this void of nothingness. My friends tried to cheer me up with the usual, "You're better off without her," and "Her loss, bro," but none of it stuck. One night, I found myself scrolling through Instagram, and guess what popped up? A photo of Sarah and Trevor. They were on some yacht, champagne in hand, all smiles. The caption read, "Living my best life, #blessed." It hit me like a slap in the face. But instead of spiraling further, something clicked. I don't know if it was anger, pride, or just sheer stubbornness, but I decided, screw this, I'm not going to let her define my worth. I threw myself into work, like fully committed. I started taking on extra projects, learning new coding languages, and coming up with ideas that could actually make a difference at my company. I wasn't just trying to prove her wrong, I was trying to prove to myself that I was capable of more. Then an idea struck. I'd always wanted to start my own tech company, but I kept putting it off, telling myself I wasn't ready. But why not now? I started working on a side project, an app that streamlined remote work for small teams. It wasn't glamorous, but it solved a real problem. For months I worked late into the night, fueled by coffee, determination, and maybe a little bit of spite. My social life? Non-existent. But I didn't care. I was focused. Little did I know, this app would end up changing everything. Part 3. The breakthrough. After 6 months of grinding, my app was finally ready. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I pitched it to a few small businesses I found on LinkedIn, offering them a free trial. To my surprise, a handful of them agreed to try it out. The feedback started pouring in. They loved how simple and efficient it was, And one of them even said it saved their team hours every week. That was the validation I needed. I decided to take a big risk. I quit my job. It was terrifying. I didn't have a safety net, just a small savings account and a dream. But I knew if I wanted this to succeed, I had to go all in. I spent the next year building the app into a full-fledged platform. I learned how to market it, networked with people in the industry, and even brought on a couple of freelance developers to help me scale it. Slowly but surely, it started gaining traction. Then came the day that changed everything. A mid-sized company stumbled across my platform and signed up for the premium plan. Their team was huge, and their subscription alone was enough to keep me afloat for months. That was when I realized this wasn't just a side hustle anymore. This was a business. By year 2, things had exploded. I had thousands of users, a small but solid team, and even an investor who believed in my vision. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control, like I was finally becoming the person I always wanted to be. But little did I know, the past wasn't quite done with me yet. Part 4. The Unexpected Reunion. By year 3, my company was thriving. I had an office space, a growing team, and I was finally making the kind of money I'd only dreamed about. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. One day we put up a job listing for a new project manager. It was a solid position with great pay, and we got tons of applications. My HR manager, Lisa, narrowed it down to 3 candidates and scheduled the interviews. I was reviewing the resumes when I saw her name, Sarah Roberts. My stomach dropped. I blinked a few times, thinking it had to be a coincidence. But nope, there it was, clear as day. Her name, her college, and her work history. The same Sarah who had dumped me for being not enough was now applying to my company. I sat there, staring at the screen, a million thoughts running through my head. Part of me wanted to cancel the interview out of sheer pettiness, but another part of me was curious. Had she changed? Did she even realize this was my company? The interview day came, and I kept it professional. I sat at the head of the conference table as Lisa brought in the candidates one by one. Sarah was last. When she walked in, my heart skipped a beat. Not because I still had feelings for her, but because the look on her face was priceless. Her eyes widened, and I could tell she recognized me immediately. She froze for half a second before regaining her composure and giving me a polite smile. "Hi, I'm Sarah. It's nice to meet you," she said, like we were total strangers. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. "Nice to meet you too. Have a seat." The interview began, and honestly, she was good. She had experience, she was articulate, and she seemed genuinely interested in the position. But I couldn't shake the irony of it all. The girl who had left me for a better option was now sitting across from me, pitching herself for a job. When the interview ended, she hesitated for a moment before saying, "It was great meeting you, and it's really impressive what you've built here." I just smiled and replied, "Thank you, we'll be in touch." As she walked out, I couldn't help but wonder, was this karma, fate, or just a wild coincidence? Part 5. The Decision. After Sarah's interview, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Lisa asked me what I thought of her, and I kept my answer short. She's qualified. That was true, but there was so much more running through my mind. Part of me wanted to reject her outright, just to prove a point. Another part thought, what if this is an opportunity to show her how far I've come? The team reviewed all the candidates, and objectively, Sarah was one of the best options. We made the decision to move forward with her, and I sent Lisa to make the offer. When Sarah accepted, I knew things were about to get interesting. Part 6. The First Day. Sarah's first day came quicker than I expected. I was curious to see how she'd handle working under me, if she'd be awkward or act like nothing ever happened. When she walked into the office that morning, she looked as polished as ever. She greeted everyone with her usual charm, and when she came to my office, she knocked lightly on the door. "Good morning," she said, with a smile that almost felt nervous. "Morning," I replied casually. "Glad to have you on board." She nodded, then added, "I just want to say, it's really impressive what you've built here. I had no idea this was your company when I applied." I shrugged. "Well, here we are." She lingered for a second, like she wanted to say more, but I didn't give her the chance. "Lisa will get you set up. Let me know if you have any questions." The rest of the day I kept my distance. I caught glimpses of her chatting with the team, taking notes in meetings, and just fitting in. It was surreal. This was someone who'd once walked out of my life like I was a placeholder, and now she was part of my company. But the best part? I didn't feel bitter anymore. If anything, I felt in control. Part 7. The Power Shift. Over the next few weeks, Sarah settled into her role, and to her credit, she was doing well. She was professional, efficient, and had good ideas. If you didn't know our history, you'd think everything was completely normal. But here's the thing. I could tell she felt the power shift. Back when we were dating, she always held the upper hand. She called the shots, and I was just happy to follow along. But now, the dynamic was entirely different. I noticed it in small ways, like how she'd hesitate before speaking in meetings when I was in the room, or how she'd carefully word her emails to me. It wasn't fear, exactly, more like respect. One day, I asked her to present a project update during a team meeting. As she stood up and started explaining her work, I caught her glancing at me a couple of times, almost like she was looking for approval. It was such a stark contrast to the confident, carefree Sarah I used to know. After the meeting, she stopped by my office. "Hey, do you have a second?" "Sure," I said, leaning back in my chair. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I just wanted to say thanks for giving me this opportunity. I know things ended not great between us, and I wasn't sure how you'd feel about me working here." I raised an eyebrow. "I hired you because you're qualified, Sarah. Whatever happened in the past doesn't affect how I run my company." She nodded, but I could see the flicker of guilt in her expression. "I appreciate that, really." And just like that, the power balance shifted even further. Part 8. The Confession. It happened late one evening. Most of the team had left for the day, but I was still in my office, catching up on emails. To my surprise, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," I called out. It was Sarah. She stepped inside, looking a little hesitant. "Hey, do you have a minute?" I glanced at the clock, then back at her. "Sure, what's up?" She closed the door behind her and sat down across from me. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just fidgeted with her hands. Finally, she let out a deep breath. "Look, I know I don't have the right to bring this up, but I need to say it," she started. "I've been carrying a lot of guilt about how things ended between us." I leaned back in my chair, not saying anything, just letting her continue. "I was selfish," she admitted. "Back then I thought I needed someone who could give me this perfect, glamorous life. And Trevor, well, he seemed like the answer." She paused, her voice softening. "But I was wrong. He wasn't who I thought he was. And honestly, leaving you was the biggest mistake I've ever made." I sat there, processing her words. A part of me had dreamed of hearing this, but now that it was happening, it felt underwhelming. "I'm not saying this to get sympathy or to undo the past," she added quickly. "I just wanted to own up to my mistakes and tell you that you deserved better." I nodded, keeping my tone calm. "I appreciate you saying that, Sarah. But honestly, I've moved on. That chapter of my life is closed." She looked down, giving a small nod. "I figured as much. I needed to say it." And with that, she stood up, gave me a faint smile, and left the room. For the first time in years, I felt completely free of the weight of that breakup. Part 9. Thriving in my own lane. After that conversation, something shifted, not just with Sarah, but with me too. I didn't feel the need to prove anything anymore. My success wasn't about her or anyone else. It was about me building the life I'd always wanted. Sarah continued to do well at the company, and our interactions stayed professional. She seemed to respect the boundaries I'd set, and honestly, I respected her for owning up to her past mistakes. Meanwhile, my company kept growing. We landed a huge client that doubled our revenue, and I was finally able to step back from the day-to-day grind and focus on bigger picture goals. Every so often, I'd catch Sarah glancing at me during meetings or company events, and I could tell there was still some lingering regret. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I was thriving in my own lane, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace. Part 10. The Ultimate Closure. A few months later, I was at a company networking event, chatting with some new investors and partners. Everything was going smoothly when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw Sarah standing there, a little awkward, but with a sincere look on her face. "Hey, can we talk for a second?" she asked. I nodded and motioned for us to step aside. We moved away from the crowd, and she looked at me with a mix of hesitation and determination. "Listen," she started, "I don't want to make this awkward, but I wanted to thank you again, not just for giving me a chance here, but for everything. I've realized that I've been holding on to some serious regrets, and I need to let go of them." I raised an eyebrow, waiting for her to continue. I used to think I needed someone else to complete me, or to give me everything I thought I wanted, but I've learned that it's all about what you can create for yourself. You've built this incredible company, and you've grown so much. I don't know if you ever realized this, but you showed me how to stop looking for validation outside of myself. I didn't know what to say. The woman who had once left me for a better life was now telling me that I'd been the one to teach her something valuable. "I don't expect anything from you," she added quickly. "I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry for everything, and I wish you nothing but success. You deserve it." For a moment, I just stood there, absorbing her words. Then, finally, I smiled. "Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that." We exchanged one last look before she turned and walked back into the crowd. I stood there for a moment longer, feeling a strange sense of closure. It wasn't just about her apology. It was about how far I'd come. I had taken control of my own life, built something meaningful, and finally let go of the past. And that, in the end, was the ultimate closure. Life has a funny way of surprising you. Sometimes, the people who hurt you the most end up teaching you the lessons you didn't even know you needed. For me, it was all about learning to rely on myself, to build something on my own terms, and to never let anyone else's opinions define my worth. If you're going through something similar, whether it's a breakup, a setback, or a feeling of being stuck, remember this: your worth isn't tied to anyone else's opinion. You've got everything you need to turn things around, just like I did. If you've been in a situation where you've had to let go and rebuild, drop a comment and share your story. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming challenges and taking control of your own destiny. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and remember, your best days are ahead of you.